They say you never really know someone until you've seen the way they look at you while lying straight to your face. I didn't believe that, not until it happened to me. This is the story of how love became poison, and how silence turned into a scream no one could ignore. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel and like the video. My name is Elena, 28 years old, born and raised in San Antonio. I work as a nurse in the emergency department of a hospital that never sleeps. My shifts are long, my patients often tested, but I love what I do. There's a certain dignity in being the person others turn to when their world is falling apart. I thought I understood suffering. I thought I'd seen it all. But nothing prepares you for betrayal. Before it all happened, my life was ordinary. Work, gym, dinners at home. And Daniel. He was my center, or so I believed. We'd been together for 4 years, and we shared an apartment on the north side of the city. He was charming in that easy way that makes people trust him without effort. He worked in real estate, long hours, endless calls, always closing one deal or chasing another. At least, that's what I told myself every time he came home late. Our relationship wasn't perfect. No one's is. But there were moments, small quiet ones, that made me believe in us. Sunday mornings cooking pancakes. Movie nights where we'd argue over which terrible comedy to watch. Walks by the river, his hand warm in mine. Those were the moments I held on to. Those were the ones I replayed in my head whenever doubt crept in. The first cracks were subtle. Missed calls he didn't explain. New cologne he suddenly started wearing. His laughter different, somehow lighter, freer, when it wasn't directed at me. I brushed it aside. Told myself I was tired. Overthinking. Nurses don't sleep enough, and exhaustion plays tricks on the mind. But exhaustion doesn't explain lipstick stains. It was a Tuesday night when I found it. Daniel's shirt tossed carelessly into the laundry basket. A faint smear on the collar, not my shade, not any shade I owned. My chest tightened. I told myself it was nothing. A smudge from a client, maybe. An accident. But deep down I knew better. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I wanted to believe in the man I loved. So I stayed quiet. Observed. Counted the lies hidden in his casual words. The excuses piling up like unpaid bills. He was slipping away from me, and I was letting it happen. The days dragged on, heavy with suspicion. I went to work with tired eyes, my smile mechanical, my hands steady as always but my mind elsewhere. My coworkers noticed the shadows under my eyes. "Rough shift?" they'd ask. I'd nod and say yes. I couldn't tell them the truth, that the real emergency was in my own home. At night I became a detective. Every detail mattered. His phone left face down on the counter. The sudden shower he took the moment he came home. The way he changed passwords he'd once shared so casually. Each piece of evidence sat in my mind like a stone, building a wall I couldn't climb. And then there were the silences. Silences that stretched too long. Silences where there used to be laughter or even arguments. Silence when I asked how his day went. Silence when I reached for his hand and he didn't reach back. Once I heard him in the kitchen, whispering into his phone. His voice soft, a tone he never used with me anymore. When I walked in he jumped, nearly dropped the phone and laughed it off. "Just work," he said. "Just work." As if work made you smile like that. As if work left you with that look in your eyes, guilty and wild. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. That I was building ghosts out of shadows. That I was paranoid. But paranoia doesn't leave traces of perfume on your pillow when he's been gone all night. One Saturday I suggested we go out to dinner. Somewhere nice. Just us. He hesitated, then said he was too tired. "Rain check," he promised, kissing my forehead before turning back to his laptop. An hour later, I heard the door close quietly. He thought I was asleep. I walked to the window and saw him get into his car. Not tired. Not working. Just leaving. That night I lay awake, the ceiling fan spinning above me like the ticking hands of a clock. With every turn I felt more certain. He wasn't mine anymore. Maybe he never really was. One night I sat on the edge of our bed watching him sleep. His face was calm, innocent almost. As if he hadn't already broken me. I wondered then. Who was he dreaming of? Was it me? Or was it her? I didn't know her name yet. I didn't know her face. But I could feel her presence like a shadow stretching across our life. And I promised myself, I would find out. They say intuition is a woman's gift, but to me it felt more like a curse. The more I trusted it, the heavier it became, pressing down on me until I couldn't breathe without thinking about it, without thinking about her. After I promised myself I'd find out, there was no turning back. The quiet observer in me became relentless. I wasn't just Elena the nurse anymore. I was Elena the spy, Elena the shadow in her own home. Daniel grew bolder, or maybe just careless. He started leaving on Fridays, claiming he had late closings with clients. But real estate doesn't close deals at midnight, and I knew it. He'd come home with a glow on his skin that had nothing to do with contracts and everything to do with sin. I started small. Checked his phone when he was in the shower, though he'd grown more protective of it. Most of his messages were wiped clean, but just once he slipped. A single thread half deleted. A woman's words, casual but intimate. Last night was amazing. Can't wait for Saturday. Saturday. Always Saturday. I memorized the number. Saved it. Burned it into my memory like scripture. I didn't call right away. I needed more. So I followed him. The first time my hand shook on the steering wheel. My heart thundered so loud I thought he might hear it even from his car ahead of me. But he didn't look back. He drove like a man too sure of himself. He pulled into a downtown condo. Sleek, modern, the kind of place you only live in if someone else is paying part of the bills. I parked a block away, watched him step inside. Minutes later, she appeared at the door. She, the shadow with a face now. Younger than me, maybe mid-20s. Long dark hair. Legs like she'd never stood 12 hours in an hour. She kissed him in the doorway. Not quick, not guilty. Slow. Hungry. Like I didn't exist. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Watched them disappear inside. I told myself I wouldn't cry. And I didn't. Not that night. I just drove home in silence, memorizing every second of what I saw. At work, I stitched up patients with shaking hands I forced steady. Their blood on my gloves didn't faze me anymore. I was too busy thinking about Daniel's lips on hers. Every beep of a heart monitor. Every scream in the trauma bay. It all faded behind the echo of her laugh. Days turned into weeks. I gathered more. Notes. Times. Excuses. His lies became predictable. Working late. Closing a deal. Drinks with the guys. I knew exactly where he was each time. And who he was with. I wasn't the type to rage. My anger was colder than that. More precise. I didn't throw plates or scream in his face. Instead I smiled. Kissed his cheek. Asked how work went. Let him think I was blind. Because blindness was the best camouflage. But every smile I gave him was a blade I was sharpening. One night as I lay awake I asked myself, why not leave? Why not pack my things and walk away? The answer came easily, chillingly. Because walking away would make me the loser in a game I never asked to play. Because she'd still have him. Because they'd laugh at me in bed, whispering about the foolish woman who never saw it coming. No, leaving wasn't justice. Leaving was surrender. So I began to imagine other endings. Violent endings. The thought scared me at first. I'd always been the healer, never the destroyer. But the more I pictured it, the calmer I felt. Like a fever breaking. Like clarity. I told myself it was only fantasy. A way to vent the poison out of my system. But deep down I knew the truth. It wasn't fantasy. It was a plan waiting to be born. One evening he came home late again. Smelled of wine and perfume. I waited until he fell asleep beside me. His back turned. I lay there staring at him, listening to his breathing. My hand hovered inches from his neck, not touching, just imagining. I pictured squeezing until the breath stopped, until the lies ended with it. I didn't move. Not that night. But I realized something important. I could. And once I knew I could, the question wasn't if. It was when. There's a moment when hurt turns into clarity. For weeks I'd been drowning in betrayal, choking on lies. But one night, lying awake beside Daniel, clarity came. Cold, sharp, merciless. I wasn't just going to leave. I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to end it, and them. Revenge wasn't rage. Rage is messy. Revenge is method. And I was nothing if not methodical. I started small. I researched. Carefully. Incognito tabs, VPNs, library computers. I read stories of women who snapped, of men who disappeared. I studied mistakes. Fingerprints left behind, cameras ignored, phone records carelessly exposed. I wasn't going to be like them. If I did this, it had to be perfect. At work, I practiced keeping my hands steady, my face calm, while my mind planned murder between sutures and 4 drips. My colleagues thought I was tired. They weren't wrong. I bought supplies slowly, discreetly. Gloves, bleach, plastic tarps, rope. Items spread across different stores so no one would see a pattern. I paid cash. Always cash. I tracked their routines. I knew Daniel's schedule already, when he left, when he returned. Hers I pieced together by following her a few times. She worked at a boutique downtown, closed at 7. They usually met Saturdays, sometimes Tuesdays. Always at her condo. I made notes. Pages of them. Exact times. Routes. Blind spots where no cameras watched. I drew diagrams, memorized escape paths. My apartment became a crime scene in theory long before it would be in practice. The more I planned, the calmer I felt. It was like charting out a patient's care plan, only this time the cure was elimination. I considered weapons. Guns were too loud, too traceable. Knives were intimate but messy. Then I thought about my hands. About how easy it had felt to hover them near Daniel's throat that night. But bare hands left marks. Evidence. I needed precision. Finally, I settled on a blade. Small. Sharp. Surgical. Something I understood. I rehearsed in my head 1,000 times. I'd wait for the right night, slip in, end it quickly. Clean. Efficient. Justice delivered by the one he'd underestimated most. But even perfect plans have flaws. And mine had one. I couldn't control time. Every day that passed felt like another betrayal. Another wound. I wanted to act. My blood screamed for it. But I had to wait. For the right opportunity. For the moment when their guard was lowest. That moment came sooner than I expected. One evening, Daniel mentioned he'd be out late on Saturday. Client dinner, he said, avoiding my eyes. I nodded, kissed his cheek, told him to have fun. Inside, I was already choosing my clothes, my route, my weapon. Saturday night. That was when it would happen. And this time I wasn't just imagining. The night had a stillness to it, the kind that hums in your bones. Saturday. The night I'd marked in my mind, written on invisible calendars only I could see. Daniel left the apartment around 8. He wore his best shirt, the one I'd given him for his birthday last year. He didn't look at me when he left. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he didn't care. Either way, it was the last time he'd walk out that door. I waited 15 minutes, then gathered what I needed. Gloves. The knife. A black jacket that would swallow me into the night. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't afraid. Fear had burned out of me weeks ago. What remained was something colder. Steadier. The drive downtown was a blur. Streetlights flashed over the windshield, casting brief shadows across my face. I parked 2 blocks away from her condo, where cameras wouldn't catch me, and walked the rest of the distance. The night air was cool, almost gentle, as if mocking what I carried inside me. I knew the entry. A side door with a lock I'd watched Daniel open a dozen times. It was easy, too easy. No alarms, no guards. People think the danger always comes from outside. They never see it's already walking toward them. Inside, the condo was dark except for the faint glow of a lamp. I heard them before I saw them. Laughter. Glasses clinking. Her voice. His voice. Entwined like music turned sour. I stood in the hallway, just beyond their line of sight, and listened. For 1 second, a memory of us, of pancakes on Sunday mornings, tried to push through. Crushed it. That Elena was gone. I stepped inside. They looked up, startled at first. Confused. Then realization dawned on Daniel's face. "Elena, what are you?" he started, but he didn't finish. The knife flashed once, twice. His shock froze him in place long enough for the blade to find him. The sound he made was not a scream, not really. More like a gasp, a disbelief that I could be the storm he never saw coming. He stumbled, fell, and I followed through, efficient, merciless. She tried to run. Her bare feet slipped on the floor as she scrambled toward the door. I caught her arm, pulled her back. Her eyes were wide, wet with terror. She begged, words tumbling out incoherent, promises she couldn't keep. I silenced them the same way I silenced him. When it was over, the condo was quiet again. No laughter. No lies. Just the low hum of the lamp and the sound of my breathing steady and even. I cleaned what I could. Gloves left no prints. Bleach erased what little they might have left behind. Clothes went into a bag I'd burn later. I checked the mirror before I left. My reflection was calm, cold, whole. The city was still alive outside. People laughing, cars passing, the world oblivious. I walked back to my car, blending in with the night, and drove home. Daniel's side of the bed was empty. I lay down anyway. For the first time in weeks, I slept without dreams. The news broke 2 days later. Double homicide in downtown condo. Victims identified as Daniel Morales and Sofia Ruiz. Their faces filled the screen, smiling perfect. Strangers acted shocked. Friends wept on camera. Police promised an investigation. I sat on the couch, sipping coffee, and nodded along. I thought I'd done it. I thought it was clean. Perfect. But perfection doesn't exist. And I had overlooked something. For 2 days I believed I was free. The news showed their faces, reporters speculated, detectives stood at podiums and gave empty assurances. I went to work, bandaged wounds, smiled at patients. Inside I carried a secret like a treasure. No one knew. No one suspected. Then came the knock. It was Wednesday just after midnight. Sharp, heavy raps at the door. My blood went cold before I even moved. I opened it to find 2 detectives, badges, serious faces, the smell of stale coffee clinging to their suits. Elena Vargas? I nodded. They asked questions. Routine, they called it. Where was I Saturday night? Did I know Daniel's whereabouts? Did I know Sofia Ruiz? I answered calmly, evenly. My voice didn't crack. Years in the ER had taught me how to lie with confidence. But their eyes, they weren't buying it. Then they showed me something. Security footage. Grainy, black and white, from a corner store a block from the condo. A woman in a black jacket walking past at 8:17 p.m. The hood was up, but the posture, the walk, it was me. I had forgotten the camera. Forgotten that even shadows can betray you. I tried to explain. Said it wasn't me. Said I was home. But my phone records betrayed me too. Pinged off a tower too close to the condo. Too precise. Too damning. The arrest was quiet. No struggle. No shouting. Just the click of cold steel around my wrists and the hum of fluorescent lights in the station as they booked me. The trial was worse. They painted me as a woman scorned, obsessed, dangerous. Every detail of my life dissected, twisted, laid bare before strangers. My colleagues testified about my exhaustion, my temper on bad days. Friends recalled arguments Daniel and I had. The prosecution called it motive. The defense called it stress. The jury called it guilt. Life imprisonment. No parole. The cell they gave me is small. 8 by 10. Metal bed. Concrete walls. Time passes slowly here, measured in footsteps of guards and the clang of bars. Some nights I close my eyes and hear the sound of their laughter again, just before I ended it. Other nights I hear nothing but silence, and that is worse. Do I regret it? No, not regret. Regret is for accidents, for mistakes. This was choice. This was clarity. I ended what they thought they could build from the ruins of me. But freedom was never mine to take. Because even now, even here, I am not free. I am bound to what I did, chained to the memory of blood on my hands and the moment their eyes went wide. This cell is not my prison. My mind is. And there is no parole from that. End.